We have some special coverage for you on Russia's war on Ukraine. The first sit-down interview between Ukraine's president and Canadian media since the start of the invasion almost 8 months ago. CBC correspondent Briar Stewart was one of the journalists who spoke with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and she brings us more on that from Kyiv.
Well, the interview itself was an hour long, and it took place at the office of the president, which is a kind of a part of a compound where Zelenskyy both lives and works. And even before the interview began, he got his microphone on, he sat down, his phone vibrated, he took it out, and he said that there had been another missile strike on a power facility in Ukraine. And then several times throughout the interview, he stopped to say that there were drones targeting the capital region. And then at one instance, actually, you could hear two large bangs overhead, and that's when he pointed to the ceiling and he said that's the air defense system working. And I think that really highlights a large issue that this country is dealing with right now, this increasing level of attacks and the ability to try to stop the threats. I spoke to him specifically about the issues caused by these drones that have been, Ukraine says, supplied by Iran.
Anti-aircraft, anti-missile defense for us today is very, very important. These are the systems that can save our society from these targeted terror attacks. And sure, of course, the main mission today of Russia is they're hitting precisely our energy system. Their goal is for the people to have no light. They are terrorists. But one important thing, they think that if they turn off the light for us, we won't find them. We will find them. You know why? Because they cannot do anything on the battlefield. They just hit civilians. So we'll find them by the smell of not bravery.
So Zelenskyy there obviously, targeting his message around just the Russian military, saying that because Russia is losing space in Ukraine, it's losing some of the territory it occupied, it believes it's seeking revenge with these drone attacks. But what was interesting, they said, is that even though they're getting these air defense systems and NATO countries have committed to giving them more, the issue is that these drones, which are relatively cheap, can be sent in such huge numbers that it would take a lot of different missiles launched by air defense systems to actually intercept them. So, there really was a thought about just how feasible it is to be able to take down all of these drones. And it is just a big looming issue now for this country.
So now, Briar, you spoke with the president also about the international community's role in assisting Ukraine in the war, and of course, in particular, what Canada is doing. What did Zelenskyy have to say about that?
Of course. I mean, Canada and Ukraine have a very close relationship, and Ukraine had recently asked Canada to send more armored vehicles and long-range weapons, rather. And in fact, Canada didn't do that. Instead, it committed nearly $50 million, but it was sending other equipment and a large volume of winter clothing. So he was asked specifically about that. He didn't have any negative things to say. It was only praise for Canada. He talked about how they had a very special relationship. And here's a little bit of what he had to say.
This is more than partnership. It's something more, something bigger. It's like being relatives regardless of the distance. I want to emphasize once again the distance between the states is not measured in kilometers. It is measured in completely different things, in values and in attitudes towards each other's history. Therefore, Canada has supported us. I don't remember the entire number. I hope Prime Minister Trudeau won't be offended, but I think it's about 2 billion Canadian dollars. It's a very powerful support. Not every state can boast of that amount, although at the same time, Trudeau is not boasting. I'm, again, very grateful to him.
We, of course, also asked him about Russia and, in particular, President Vladimir Putin. Zelenskyy had already said he refused to negotiate with him, and what he really kind of re-emphasized today is that Ukraine is really not willing to negotiate at all until it gets all of its territory back.
That's the CBC's Briar Stewart in Kyiv.